Some people spend an entire lifetime wondering if they made a difference in the world. The Marines don't have that problem. So over the last few years, I've created quite a few videos ranking military uniforms around the world. Consistently, the United States Marine Corps, in particular, their dress blues, seem to dominate the top positions. Now, I'll admit I'm a bit biased. As a Marine, I can't help but admire the perfection of our uniform. That being said, if you get down in the comments, you're going to notice there are guys that served in the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, even the Coast Guard. We've got guys from branches all over the world saying, you know what, I wish we had had a uniform like that. So all this begs an answer to the question, why are the Marines so stylish?
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
So the obvious reason why Marines are so stylish is that we are brash, we are loud, we are in people's face, telling them all the time how good looking we are. Now, I'm only partially kidding here because this is a big thing that the Marines push again and again. A lot of propaganda here. If you're ever getting recruited, probably some of you guys remember when you were 18, maybe you're talking to an Army recruiter. Okay, this is the real military here. Talk to a Navy recruiter. This is technical training. The Air Force is like a corporation. Doesn't even feel like the military. The Marine Corps, it's a friggin' religion. I mean, seriously, some of you guys probably remember your recruiter telling you that, hey, yeah, you're not going to pick up any technical skills. It's not going to be comfortable, but you know what? You're going to look good in that uniform. Now, for those of you guys with a rational mind, you're thinking, how in the world does that work for recruiting? Well, the answer is it works really well because the Marine Corps takes a weakness is of all the military branches, they are the least funded per person by far. I mean, our equipment seems like it's all used, leftover stuff from the Army, but they turn that around and they say, you know what? It's not about the equipment. It's not about how much money you spend on your weapons or this new equipment. I mean, the Air Force on a single bomber, that's almost the Marine Corps budget. The Marines say, you know, it's all about the individual warrior, and they focus in on mindset and the warrior ethos. Because in case you didn't know, the Marine Corps is the smallest of all the military units, not counting the Coast Guard. We're talking 180,000 active Marines. Compare that to 350,000 in the Navy, 330,000 active in the Air Force, and their reserve components are pretty large as well. The Marine Corps only has like 40,000. Each of those other branches, 100 to 200,000 reserves. And with the Army counting the National Guard, their reserves and their full-time, we're talking almost 1 million. So yeah, when you're outnumbered and you're constantly facing a Congress and lawmakers that want to kind of eliminate the Marine Corps, they're like, why don't we just fold this into the Army, cut them up? The Marine Corps has to take a different approach. And that different approach has resulted in a culture that is cult-like. A culture that pays attention to everything, is extreme, celebrates the fanatic. I mean, the person that, yeah, let's just say that you meet Marines, that the Marine Corps is literally their life. Not only do they have full-on tattoos all over their body, but their truck is decorated. Their house is decorated. What this created is a fanatical, cult-like culture in the Marine Corps. And for most Marines, we absolutely loved it. We like to think, you know, this is what it was like to be a Spartan 2,000 years ago, kind of the idea of sacrifice. The whole ethos of the group is more important than the individual. And I get it, many people are repelled by this, but there are many others that are drawn to it because they want that sense of belonging, that sense of family, and the Marine Corps gives it to them. In fact, I'm going to share with you a story from when I was in OCS. Our gunnery sergeant would read us bedtime stories, but they just weren't any stories. These were the citations from Medal of Honor winners. In particular, I remember the story of Corporal Vittori. He served in 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, 1st Marine Division during the Korean War. Now, to paint a picture of the setting of this story time, so you're in a squad bay, and it's been a 15-hour day. You've been up since 5 a.m. It's now almost 10 o'clock at night, and you've got this gunnery sergeant who is huge, intimidating, scary. I mean, you're more scared of this guy than you are of the devil. I mean, he is going up and down the squad bay, and all of a sudden, his voice changes. And he's like, maggots, I've got a bedtime story for you. You ready? And all of a sudden, the attitude changes. Everyone's like motivated, going, yeah. You just hear it. Everyone's like laying in their beds, making these barking noises. And he starts to tell us the story. Now, I'm going to link to the Medal of Honor citation down in the description because I'm not going to do it justice in this quick summary signed by Harry Truman. But basically, Corporal Vittori, his unit was being overrun. And he had already, earlier that night, engaged in hand-to-hand combat, had saved a number of his fellow Marines. And all of a sudden, they were having to step back. They were being overrun. There was a hole in the line. So they had to plug it. They had to step back. And he's like, okay, I'm going to cover the entire platoon. So this guy sets up in a machine gun position. Everyone else falls back. He refused to fall back. And he's just there firing this machine gun. And he kept firing and he kept firing. And the entire unit stepped back. And the next day when they went back, they found his body. And apparently the guy had actually stuck his leg in a position to stop the bleeding because he'd been shot so many times in the leg. He was dead, but around him were 200 dead Chinese. And as horrible as that sounds, nowadays, I'm reading this stuff and being like, oh, people erupted during that story time. You just heard guys barking, motivation, this type of mentality. Some people may view it always a little bit, crazy. But in the Marine Corps, this type of culture of love for one another, it wasn't about, the killing. It was about simply the mentality, the fact that he had given up his life for his friends. He had made the ultimate sacrifice, and every Marine in there, and we weren't yet Marines, we were still going through OCS. People were just motivated to be a part of this community. Now, what does this have to do with style? Well, before I get into the 5 reasons, I want to talk about that's the X factor. It's the culture. It's the love of the Corps. It's the fact that you don't want to diss this uniform. There are so many things that can make a man look good in a uniform, but one of the things not talked about is just simply that you love the uniform. You love the unit. You want to represent yourself, that you care about who you are. You not only show respect to yourself, but you show respect to those who served and others that wore that uniform, and that you don't want to let them down. So now let's get into the details, and I'm going to count down to 5 being the least important reason the Marines look so stylish, and that is because they are in great shape. The Marine Corps PFT, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. I think it's the hardest physical fitness test in all of the services. Yes, the SEALs may have a very tough, Hell Week and all that other stuff. Delta may have some amazing training, but as the entire service has to go through this PFT. Doesn't matter if you are a colonel, doesn't matter if you are a boot recruit. You're going through this PFT and you're being judged. Now, when I went through, and I served from 1997 to 2003 late after coming back from Iraq, it was something that the PFT was the same for everybody. And the highest I ever scored was a 280. A perfect PFT score is going to be a 300, and you can get 100 for the run. If you can do this under 18 minutes, I think I was running about a 17:30. I was a pretty quick runner. I ran cross country in college. Pull-ups, I would only get 80 on this because I could do at the most 16 pull-ups. Upper body, I wasn't huge. This was something that was always kind of my, it was just tough for me, but I did knock out 16. And then it was crunches. You got 1 point for 100. So you do 100 crunches, and that one was always pretty easy. Now, for any old Marines out there, you may be surprised to hear that they actually changed up the PFT. So they've actually added more crunches. They made it more difficult. So now people have to take it seriously. The run, they've kind of left as it is, but now you've got the option of doing push-ups instead of pull-ups, although you can't score as high of a score. So most Marines do not take up the option, but they've also adjusted it based off of your age. But in any case, most Marines are in excellent shape. Now, you may be thinking, isn't it the same for all the other services? And I'd have to say no. The Navy, the Air Force, the Army, even to an extent, is more lax than the Marine Corps in terms of what is allowed. The Marine Corps is just a really big stickler, and they check it all the time. You have to do the PFT every single year. And then they're measuring if you look like you weigh too much, you've got too much weight around the midsection, they're going to kick you out. So why does this make them more stylish? Because in general, it's very rare to see an out-of-shape Marine, unless he's been out of the Marine Corps for a year and he kept up some of those bad eating habits he picked up in the field. And sometimes Marines, sometimes we do get really big after we leave. All that being said, notice I put the body fitness at number 5 because that's just expected. Let's go on to the next one, which you could argue is equal in importance, and that is the personal standards of dress and of grooming. Now, some of you guys may have gone to schools where they've got a dress code. Maybe they explain it in 1 to 2 pages. The Marine Corps has a dress code, and it is in a 250-page manual. Yes, everything is spelled out. There is very little room for interpretation, from the exact measurements and placement of every medal and ribbon to how much allowance should be in the clothing, to how things should be cut, how things should be tailored, which pieces you're going to wear with what. Everything is laid out in the uniform guide. And what's even crazier is this 250-page manual seems to be something that gunnery sergeants, first sergeants, sergeant majors, they've got this stuff memorized. And they are not afraid to point out, even if a lieutenant who's walking by, they love it actually when it's lieutenant. They're like, Lieutenant, just wanted to point out your bar is slightly off here. I'd appreciate it if you would go in and correct that. Now, if you're a Lance Corporal, they're not going to talk to you that nicely. They're going to grab you and tell you to yourself with, the knife hand. Point being is these guys, you've got not only this guide, but you have enforcers on every base. And it seems like these guys are popping out of trees. If you are just slightly off, and again, they notice all these details. It's like a game for these guys. And it's this standard across the board. Whenever somebody goes onto a Marine base, they're like, wow, everyone looks good because everyone is following a standard. You don't have those anomalies. Occasionally you do have someone that is we call them a shitbird. And those guys are eventually pushed out or they're on their way out. Point being is across the board, you never see really many slip-ups because everyone is correcting everyone. And of course, let's talk about hairstyles. Now, the shaved head, a lot of people think, oh, you're in the military, just go with the shaved head. That's what you get in boot camp, and that has no individuality. What people fail to miss that are in the civilian world is that actually there's a lot you can do with the up to 2 inches you are allowed on the top of your head in the Marine Corps. Now, very rarely does anyone ever have that full 2 inches on the top area. Maybe if you're over in the wing, maybe if you're a short timer, you're on your way out, or you are just a rebellious liberal in the Marine Corps. I was actually kind of this guy. I'd wear tie-dye shirts occasionally on my off time, and I was considered a hippie, which is funny. Back at my liberal college, I was considered a conservative, so I kind of didn't fit in either way. But when it comes to the hairstyles, high and tight is going to be very common, and this is what is predominantly you see throughout the infantry. They want it simple. They want it clean. Also really popular was the high fade. This one was viewed as a little bit more acceptable, especially out in the civilian world. Really popular, again, over in the infantry. Occasionally you would see this in the wing, but usually over in the wing, you would see the medium fade and the low fade. The low fade, definitely, again, that's the guy probably going to be getting out, the guy that wants to be a bit rebellious. Low fades were pretty rare, especially if you were enlisted, because gunnery sergeants, they're just like, what is that crap? Go to the PX. In fact, you would have these guys hanging out at the PX. You'd walk out and they'd be like, go right back in and get that haircut. And again, the regulations were really clear. Beards were not allowed unless you had a particular type of chit or you're dealing with some type of shaving issue. But oftentimes guys would find razors that would work with them better. Just a quick tip, if you're dealing with ingrown hairs, consider going with a single blade safety razor. It will just change your life. That being said, sideburn length and all that stuff was regulated and watched. You pretty much got a haircut every single week in the Marine Corps, which is why a lot of guys cut their own hair, because it could get expensive, but it was pretty cheap on base. Now, today's video, gents, is brought to you by Vitamin. As an owner of the company, I can tell you we make the best damn grooming products on the planet. Made in Australia, leveraging natural and organic ingredients. If you want clear, healthy, youthful looking skin, Vitamin is the company for you. And to make this simple, down in the description of today's video, I've got the best deal you're ever going to see for our daily essentials kit. This is everything you need delivered right to your door to start looking better fast. We're talking a face wash, a face scrub, and a face moisturizer. In your package, you're going to find the exact amount you need with clear instructions on how to use it. All of this at no risk to you, because gents, if you're not happy with the product, if you don't feel you're looking better within 30 days, you can get your money back. Seriously, gents, I stand behind every product over on the Vitamin website. So whether or not you're dealing with thinning hair, you're dealing with oily hair, you are dealing with a dry scalp, we've got you covered with specialty products. If you want to look more handsome, you want to look better, go check out Vitamin. Again, that link in the description of today's video is going to help you save money over at Vitamin and help you look better. So standards when it comes to fitness, standards when it comes to wearing the uniform. And that takes me to the next point is overall, the Marine Corps uniforms were relatively simple, especially when compared with the Army and all of their specialty units and all the different covers, which is basically a word for hats, all the different stuff that they could wear. The same with the Navy. The Marine Corps is very simply laid out. Starting at the top, there are 4 different types of Marine Corps uniforms. There is going to be the combat uniform, and this seems to change every 20 to 30 years, depending what's going on. They're looking for function. They're making small adjustments. I think the biggest changes I saw as I was getting out is we went from black boots that you had to polish to a no polish boot, which I think was a great improvement. In addition, they went over to the digital camo, which I'm not sure was a huge improvement, but I know now it's standard and everyone seems to like it. Now, as you can imagine, the combat uniform is straight up function. Does it make the Marines' life easier in combat? Everything here is tested out, and they're continuously looking to refine the uniform using different materials, using different cuts, different fits. Next up, we've got the service uniform. And this is one a lot of civilians are not familiar with, but Marines know as when you're checking in on base, this is like your business suit equivalent. It looks good. It serves tons of purposes. Oftentimes, you're going to get your picture taken with this one. If you're going to be day-to-day, maybe working at the Pentagon, this would be the uniform that you would wear. Now, going into a little bit more detail when it comes to the service uniform, there are Service A's, Service B's, and Service C's. Now, what I love about these uniforms is that they really are interchangeable. They're built off of each other. The Service A, you've got the jacket right there, and this is going to make this the dressiest of all the service uniforms. So again, if you're checking into base, if you're working at the Pentagon. Now, with the Service B and the Service C, this is going to be if you're working on a day-to-day basis, like on a military base, you're not having to dress up as much. It's just a regular day at work. And with the Bravos or the Charlies, you're also going to notice they've got the Garrison hat cap. I loved this hat, also called the Piss Cutter. It's just a good looking cap, I thought. You could also, if you wore a flight suit, that's actually where I wore it the majority of the time. But yeah, this is just simple work utility uniform. Now, gents, if you're enjoying today's video, do me a favor and slash that like button. Seriously, gents, the K-bar, this is the knife of the Marine Corps. We just absolutely love our K-bars. Next up, let's talk about evening dress, perhaps the least known Marine Corps uniform. And this one is for very special occasions. This is going to be at inaugurations, balls. You're going to see really high-level events. The equivalent here is white tie. So you're going to see vests, you're going to see cummerbunds, but still within a military uniform. You're going to find that most lower level officers and most enlisted personnel are not going to have this uniform because there is rarely a situation in which they would need to wear it. But if you have duty over in Washington, D.C., if you are at an embassy, you're going to find that this is probably a uniform you're going to need to pick up because there will be situations in which you'll need to wear it. And I do want to point out the boat cloak here. Yes, Marines can wear cloaks still. Per our regulations, I actually have a boat cloak. I never wore it when I was in the service. I picked it up afterwards and I have to say that they are friggin' awesome. I mean, you got to love the fact that we can bring in a cape. Yeah. Now let's talk about the blue dress uniform, also called the dress blues. This has to be the most iconic and famous Marine Corps uniform out there. And similar to the other ones, there are variations. So you are going to see the blue dress A's, you're going to see the blue dress B's, blue dress C's, and blue dress D's. Now, anyone that's ever been into a Marine Corps recruiting station, you have probably seen the blue dress C's and D's. Really depends on the time of the year. The C's are going to be more formal simply because you're wearing the tie with the longer sleeve shirt, but Deltas you're going to see, during the hot summer. And this, again, very regular wear in a recruiting station. And you'll also see blue dress C's and D's worn by Marines that are serving on security guard duty. So a little known fact is that all U.S. embassies around the world, they actually have a Marine contingent who is there to serve security. So you'll have anywhere from maybe a dozen to, in some cases, the larger embassies, you'll have, upwards of 50 to almost 100 Marines serving at this units, going in and out. Usually you won't have an officer. He'll be traveling around inspecting units, but any Marine that has served on embassy duty can tell you that it is one of the most interesting, probably cool experiences out there, which a lot of Marines don't even know about, but is, highly sought after. Now, the blue dress A's are iconic because they have popped up in so many recruiting posters. In addition, if you're on leave or you're on liberty and you're going to be attending a wedding, if you are going to be getting married, you can actually wear this uniform, hence why it's seen so many times outside. If you're going to be at a Marine Corps ball, I know we had ours multiple times in Vegas whenever you're in Pendleton. It's just easier to drive to Vegas. They've got it all set up, and let's just say the parties were crazy. But that was the uniform that you would wear out on the town, and so many people would see, Marines going crazy, having a great time, looking good, and it is iconic. I'm going to talk specifically about this uniform and the colors in a few minutes, but let's just say that it is very easy for a guy that is a 5 or even below that to knock himself up to an 8 or 9 when he's wearing that uniform, because you're in great shape. It fits you well. It has to be, follow regulations here, and it is just cut in a way that makes any man look amazing. So Marines are in great shape. They've got simple, clean, good-looking uniforms that are regulated as to how they can wear them. What else is going to make Marines stand out from the rest of the crowd? Guys, it's tailoring. Little known fact here is that Marine Corps uniforms are tailored to fit on them. A lot of the other branches, I noticed they just put on something that fits off the rack and they go with it. But whether it's the Marine Corps Exchange or you're going into the Marine shop, and I remember when I graduated from college and I got my commission, one of the first things they told us at TBS is, okay, everyone needs to take out a loan for $5,000. We're like, what? Like, yeah, you got to buy your uniforms. Enlisted, you're actually issued, but officers have to buy. But one of the things I learned, because I had to make a decision, am I going to go with the Exchange or am I going to go with the Marine shop? Is I'm like, well, why would I pay more money to go with the Marine shop? Apparently, their tailoring was better, although some people will argue nowadays that there's not really much of a difference. In any case, you're going to have multiple adjustments. Things are going to have to be made to your size. And I don't think you see this to this detail. You can actually have your uniform adjusted. I know in the Air Force, the Coasties do it. These other branches do it. But the Marine Corps, everybody does this. There are tailoring shops surrounding bases because you need to get things let in. You need to get them adjusted. You need to get them tightened up in certain areas whenever you're spending more time in the gym. And it is something that people inspect. Like before, you have your, we have inspections all the time. So you're putting on all these different uniforms and they'll do inspections like, okay, put on your dress blues or put in, your service A's. And when you're wearing this uniform during the inspection, they're going to look at how it fits you. So, oh, hey, you need to go get this adjusted. It was, in fact, my first custom suit was not a regular suit. It was my Marine Corps uniform made specifically for me. So all that being said, gents, what really makes Marines so stylish? What's the number one reason? Well, I think this is going to surprise a lot of you guys, but it's the Marine Corps' respect for history as to why our uniforms and why in general, I think Marines are so damn stylish. In fact, let's look at these images as we go through history looking at the Marine Corps uniforms. It was back in 1798, the first time that the iconic blue was introduced to the Marine Corps uniform. Now in 1834, we did go through a green phase. Andrew Jackson really wanted to see that, but within 5 years, we were already going back to the blue and red. These iconic colors, we just noticed that, hey, they work, they grab attention, they are absolutely good looking. Our iconic Eagle, Globe, and Anchor was adopted in 1875. You're going to find that all Marines wear this on their uniforms, and it is viewed that something only a Marine can wear. On the top of our cover, let's talk about the quarterfoil. This is seen on dress caps, and it's something that apparently it was for sharpshooters so that they could identify friend from foe. The reality is that's probably not true. It was a popular French fashion, and again, these have been around on our covers since 1812. Then we've got the blood stripe. You'll see this on the legs of corporals and above on the enlisted side, and all officers wear this. It was added to the uniform in 1892. And those gold buttons worn on our blue coats that have an eagle, an anchor, and an arc of 13 stars have actually been on our uniforms since the year 1804, making them one of the oldest items still in use that is worn on a modern uniform. Next up, we've got the Marmaluke sword. Adopted in 1805, this was to commemorate Marines crossing 600 miles of North Africa to capture the Barbary coast town of Dema. To this very day, it's mentioned in the Marine Corps hymn, "To the Shores of Tripoli." Now, how does this respect to history? How does it make for a great looking uniform, making Marines so stylish? Because I think we can all agree that it is a travesty when you have somebody go in and mess with something that is great. Yeah, what's that? The first rule of coding. If it works, don't touch it. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you can always improve things. That's true. But you need to understand, why is it there? And I think the Marine Corps has done an excellent job of looking at its history and very slowly changing and improving upon things. But it's funny, the Army just went back to their World War II uniforms. Guess what? The Marine Corps, our service A's, were first adopted in 1943. Yeah, we saw something that worked and we didn't mess with it. Yes, we've made minor adjustments. The materials have changed, maybe some of the fits, some of the lengths, but these are very small adjustments, because when you see something that's beautiful, that's a work of art, well, keep going with it unless, and the combat uniform is to me the only big exception here, because we do see major advancements here. But when it comes to our dress uniforms, when it comes to our nicer clothing, what's great about this is that you can make an investment here. And I think this applies, lessons learned here is that you can apply this to your own wardrobe. When it comes to wearing a jacket, a sports jacket, guys, these have been around for 100 years. Guess what? They're going to be around for another decade, so you can spend good money to look great today. Now, specifically, the colors of the dress blue uniform. These are going to be on the enlisted side: midnight blue, sky blue, scarlet, gold, and white. Now, this color combination here is great, especially because they don't go evenly. If it was 20% of each of these 5, it wouldn't be a good looking uniform. Instead, what we see is the majority is going to be the base neutral colors, the 2 blues. And then you bring in the accent colors. That gold with the red with a little bit of white. This is what really makes the details on the uniform pop. And a little bit of trivia here. Can you see what the difference is between the officer uniform and the enlisted dress blue uniform? Come on, look at it quickly. I know, okay, we've got the accents are slightly different, a few little details, but do you see the color difference? It's big. So the officer jacket is black, and it's the enlisted jacket right here that is going to be navy blue. It may not seem like much of a difference, but it is per regulation. And I'm not sure why they started that one. It's a very slight variation. I have to say that looking at the two, I really do like the officer jacket. But then again, that was I don't know, agree, disagree. Let me know in the comments below who wears it better, the enlisted side or the officer side when it comes to their dress blues. I want to hear from you guys down below. Now, gents, if you enjoyed this video, you want more about the Marine Corps, go check out this video. I did it a while back about the life lessons I took from the United States Marine Corps, and I think any guy can take. So yeah, it's a good video. Go check it out. Boom, right here. Semper Fi. Oh yeah.